The sun burned hot over the desert planet of Myrix 4. Sandstorms twisted in the distance, as loud voices filled the slave market. Rows of cages stretched far across the cracked ground. Inside each cage sat beings from different worlds, some proud, some silent, and some broken. Buyers from many species walked through the marketplace with cold eyes and heavy purses. They pointed, whispered, and laughed. The auctioneer, a thick-skinned alien with metal arms, stood on a rusted stage, shouting bids over the noise. "Next lot." The auctioneer barked. 2 guards pulled open a cage door and dragged out a tall, thin alien woman. Her skin was pale violet, but dry and cracked like old clay. Her white hair hung in knots. She was barefoot, and her knees shook with weakness. She held a child close to her chest, a girl, no older than 5, thin like her mother, with big gray eyes. "Damaged stock," the auctioneer said with a sneer. "No skills, no speech, no worth. 1 adult, 1 child. Starting price 5 credits. "No." One raised a hand. Silence. 3 credits, he shouted. 2? Still no one. Someone in the crowd laughed. "She looks like she'd die before making it home." "Useless breeder," another voice said. "Who wants a broken mother and a starving brat?" The mother lowered her eyes. Her hands trembled, but she didn't let go of her child. She didn't speak. She just stood there and waited, like she had done many times before. Hope had left her long ago. The auctioneer looked annoyed. 1 credit then, 1. Nothing. Then came a voice from the back. Calm, deep, human. "I'll take her." The crowd turned. A tall man stood near the edge of the crowd. He wore simple desert clothes, a brown jacket and dusty boots. His face was tired but kind. His eyes were focused on the woman, not like the others, not with hunger or judgment. Just quiet, serious attention. The auctioneer squinted. "You? 1 credit?" The man shook his head. "I'm not paying anything. I'm not buying her. I'm taking her as family." The crowd gasped. The auctioneer's metal arms clicked. "You can't do that. She's property. You buy or you leave." The man stepped forward and pulled something from his jacket. It was a thin card with a silver seal. "I'm a citizen of the United States of Earth. Under Earth Code 47-9. I'm allowed to claim guardianship of any slave found without legal ownership on frontier markets. This one hasn't been sold in over 3 cycles. That means she's unclaimed," the auctioneer growled. "She's still under auction. The law." The man cut him off. "She has no name, no rights, no home. You've sold her body, her voice, and her life. Now I'm giving her something you never could." He walked up the stage, ignoring the guards. He knelt in front of the woman and looked into her hollow eyes. Slowly, he took out a marker and wrote 4 letters on the slave tag that hung from her. Neck read. "That's my name," he said softly. "Now it's yours too, if you want it." The woman didn't speak. Her eyes filled with water, but no tears fell. Her daughter looked up at the man and reached out with a tiny hand. The guards raised their weapons. "Step back, human." The crowd watched closely now, some with curiosity, some with anger, some with something close to envy. The man stood up, placing himself between the woman and the guards. "I don't care about your market. I care about them." A long pause filled the air. Then the auctioneer threw up his hands. "Fine, take her. Human. But don't come crying when she turns into a burden." The man didn't answer. He turned to the woman and gently offered his hand. She stared at it, unsure. Then, for the first time in years, she moved on her own. "No push, no pull," she placed. Her hand in his. He led her down the steps. The daughter held tightly to her mother's arm as the 3 of them walked through the crowd. No chains. No price. Just a name. As they passed through the last gate of the market, the sun hit her face fully. She flinched at first. Then slowly, she looked up at the sky. She hadn't seen the open sky in so long. Behind them, the auction continued. The noise grew louder. But none of it mattered now. He had given her something no one else had, a choice, a name, and a future. And she hadn't even spoken a single word yet. Asterisk, the wind outside the slave market was dry and bitter, carrying dust and old smoke. The human walked slowly, holding the little girl's hand while the alien woman followed behind him, still barefoot, still silent. Every step she took felt strange, not because of pain, but because there were no chains on her ankles. They reached his ship. It wasn't shiny or fancy. It was old, scratched, and small. But it was clean, safe, human. The ramp lowered with a soft hiss. Lights glowed from inside, warm, golden lights, not the cold blue of prison cells. The man turned to her and said softly, "You're safe now. This is your home." She didn't move. Her child pulled at her arm, wanting to go in. But the mother hesitated. She looked back toward the market, half expecting guards to come running, calling her back. For years, she had been dragged from cell to cell, cage to cage. She had forgotten what freedom felt like. "I don't have a name," she whispered, voice shaking. Her first words in weeks. "You do now," he replied. "Ilari Reed, if you accept it. Your daughter, too." The name Reed repeated in her head. She didn't know what it meant, but something about it felt solid, like a stone she could finally hold on to. He stepped inside the ship, giving her space. The little girl walked up the ramp, barefoot like her mother, and turned back to pull. Her hand, slowly, Ilari followed. The ship's inside was simple. 2 beds, a table, a cooking unit, and folded clothes stacked neatly. There was no lock on the door, no weapons on display, no watching eyes. The human, his name was Jacob, poured water into cups and placed them on the table. "Drink, you must be thirsty." Ilari didn't move. She stared at the cup. Her daughter reached first, gulping it down with both hands. Then she sat in Jacob's lap like she belonged there. Ilari rushed forward, her heart pounding, but Jacob didn't flinch. He just smiled gently and said, "She's all right. Kids trust good people faster than grown-ups. I don't know how to repay this," she whispered. "You don't have to," he said. "I don't want anything from you. Just rest." She looked away, trembling. Men always say that. Then they want something. Jacob nodded. "You're right. But I'm not like them. I saw a mother holding her daughter, and no one saw her worth. That's not a world I want to live in." That night, the girl slept curled up in a blanket on the bed beside her mother. Jacob stayed in the pilot seat, watching the stars through the window. Ilari couldn't sleep. She had a name now. She had a warm bed. She had food. But deep inside, she still felt like a ghost in her own skin. In the morning, Jacob handed her folded clothes, soft, clean, simple human fabric. "I don't know if they'll fit, but they'll feel better." Then rags. She touched the fabric like it was gold. Then she said, "I used to be a healer on my world, before the war came, before they took me." Jacob looked at her with respect. "Then maybe it's time to heal again. Not just others. Yourself, too." She didn't answer, but her eyes softened. Later that day, as Jacob checked the ship's controls, a red light blinked on his screen. Tracker signal. Her old slave tag had activated. He cursed under his breath. Someone was trying to find her. "Ilari," he said firmly, walking to her. "We have to remove that chip from your skin, now." She backed away. "It will hurt. I can do it quick. I used to be a field medic. Trust me." She sat on the table, silent. Her daughter stood by the corner, holding a blanket Jacob found. The small bump on the back of her neck and pressed a tool gently. Ilari gasped, but didn't cry. In less than a minute, the chip was out. He dropped it into a metal box and crushed it with one sharp press. "Now they can't track you." Ilari touched the back of her neck, breathing fast. Then she looked at him. Why are you doing all this for me? She asked. Jacob looked her in the eyes. Because once I was lost too. A stranger on a war planet. A family hid me, fed me, and gave me their name. Now it's my turn to give that gift forward. Illyri's lips trembled. No one had ever spoken to her like that, not even her own kind. You don't know me, she said. I will, he replied. Outside the stars moved. Inside, for the first time in many years, Illyri felt something deep in her chest. Not fear, not hunger, not anger. Hope. Illyri sat on the bed in Jacob's ship, staring at her hands. They looked different now. Clean, no chains, no blood. Her fingers still shook, but not from cold. From something deeper. Something she couldn't name. Her daughter was sleeping next to her, face buried in the blanket. The little one had adjusted quickly, as children do when they feel love. But Illyri, she didn't know how to relax. Every noise made her flinch. Every shadow brought old memories. Outside the small window, stars passed by like rivers of light. They were flying through space, far from the slave markets, far from the screaming, far from the men who had broken her, and yet, inside, she still felt trapped. Jacob walked in with a bowl of warm food, real food, not ration blocks or slave paste. It's just soup, he said, placing it near her. But it's better when it's hot. She didn't move. You haven't eaten since yesterday, he added. Gently. She stared at the bowl. Steam rose from it. Her stomach growled, but she stayed still. Jacob didn't force her. He just placed the bowl closer and sat down across the room. He picked up a small notebook and started writing. The sound of the pen was soft and steady, like rainfall. After a few minutes, Illyri reached for the spoon. Her hands trembled. She brought the soup to her lips. It tasted simple. Potatoes, something like meat and herbs. But to her, it was like eating memory, like tasting freedom. She finished half before setting it down, then whispered, "Thank you." Jacob looked up. Anytime. A silence passed between them, not heavy, not awkward. Just quiet. Then she asked, "Why didn't you choose someone younger, healthier? There were others, not broken." Jacob looked at her for a long moment. Then he closed the notebook and leaned forward. "I didn't come to that market looking for beauty. I came to find someone who still had a soul, even after the worst. When I saw you holding your daughter, protecting her even when everyone laughed, I knew you were stronger than any warrior." Illyri's eyes began to shine with water, but she wiped them quickly. She didn't want to cry. "Not in front of him. I don't know how to be anything anymore," she said. "Not a wife, not a healer, not even myself." "You don't have to be anything," Jacob said. "Just breathe, just be here." She nodded slowly. That night something happened. Illyri woke up to a strange noise. A sharp click, like metal touching metal. She sat up quickly and looked toward the ship's main door. It was open. Jacob was already there. Blaster in hand, eyes sharp. Two shadows stood just outside the ship, armored figures, with glowing eyes and scanner devices. Alien bounty hunters, Illyri. "Of Clan Vena," one of them said. "You are tagged and listed. You belong to Vornix Holdings. Return now or face death." Jacob stepped in front of them. "She's free. She's under my protection. She is not Earthborn. She has no documents. No official transfer. You have no right." Jacob pulled out a sealed datapad. "Earth Citizenship Code, Emergency. Clause 19. She carries my name now." The bounty hunters raised their weapons. Jacob didn't flinch. "You fire on my ship, you fire on the United States of Earth, and I promise they will come for you." The two figures paused. Then slowly they backed away. "She's marked," one of them warned. "There will be others." They vanished into the dust. Jacob shut the ramp and turned around. Illyri was standing near the wall, holding her daughter close, eyes wide with fear. He walked over slowly and crouched down. "You're safe, For now, I'm a danger to you, she said. They will never stop. Then we won't stop either, he replied. I told you, I don't run, I protect. She looked into his eyes. There was no fear in them. Just fire and calm. Later, after the ship was locked tight, she sat by the window, watching stars move again. Jacob had gone to rest. The child slept peacefully, and Ilari, for the first time in years, began to believe maybe she wasn't a slave anymore. Maybe she really was Ilari Reed, but still, fear lived deep inside. Not fear of death, fear of losing this, fear of waking up and finding it was all just another dream, another lie. She touched the small patch of skin on her neck where the chip had been. It was gone. But the wound in her heart still needed time. Still, she had made a choice. Tomorrow, she would speak more. Tomorrow, she would help clean the ship. Tomorrow, she would try to live. And when that day came, she knew the man who gave her his name would be there, not as a master, but as something far better. A protector, a friend, maybe even more. Asterisk, the ship hummed softly as it moved through the dark of space. Inside, everything was quiet except for the soft breathing of a sleeping child. Ilari stood in front of a mirror, inside the small washroom. The reflection surprised her. She didn't look like the slave woman from the market anymore. Her hair was brushed, her face was clean, and the bruises were starting to fade. She wore a simple gray shirt and soft pants Jacob had given her. They were too big, but they were hers now. She touched her cheek. Her skin no longer felt like sandpaper. The woman in the mirror looked alive. In the other room, Jacob was in the kitchen corner, placing fresh-cut vegetables into a boiling pot. A gentle smell filled the air, garlic, herbs, something warm. He didn't speak. He just cooked with quiet focus. Ilari stepped into the room, unsure of her place. Morning, Jacob said without turning around. She nodded. Morning. He pointed to the table. I made something new, human food. Vegetable stew. You should eat. She sat down slowly, watching him. Why do you do all this? Jacob stirred the pot. Because I want to. That's not a reason, she said softly. He looked over his shoulder, half smiling. Then maybe it's the best reason. He brought her a bowl and a wooden spoon. Eat while it's hot. I'll get the girl her plate after she wakes. Ilari stared at the stew. She didn't hesitate this time. She took the spoon and tasted it. It wasn't fancy, but it was full of flavor, full of care. Every bite warmed her chest. She finished half before she looked up again. I used to cook for my village, before the war. Jacob leaned on the counter. You miss them? I miss who I was, she said. I used to be someone people came to when they were sick. They trusted me. Then the soldiers came. They burned everything. Took everyone. Jacob didn't interrupt. Ilari took a shaky breath. After they killed my mate, I thought I died too. But then she was born. She looked toward the sleeping child, and I had to keep going. For her, Jacob nodded. You did more than survive. You carried her through all that. That takes strength. Ilari didn't speak. Her fingers tightened around the spoon. He added gently, You're still that healer. I see it. She shook her head. I'm broken. No, he said. You're healing. There was silence again, but it was soft, like a quiet song. Later that day, Ilari followed Jacob into the ship's storage room. He was organizing supplies, medicine, food packs, tools. She picked up a container without asking and began helping. You don't have to, he started. I want to, she said. Together, they worked. Ilari was slow at first, unsure of where things went. But Jacob showed her with patience. And when she smiled after getting it right, he smiled too. Her daughter woke up and joined them, playing with empty boxes and pretending they were forts. For the first time, her laughter echoed through the ship. Hours passed. When the work was done, They sat on the floor and shared fruit cubes and water. Jacob told them a story about Earth animals called ducks who wore tiny hats in some cities. Ilari laughed. Not just a smile, a real laugh, quick and surprised. Jacob blinked. That's the first time I've heard that sound from you. She covered her mouth shy. I forgot how it felt. You should remember it more, he said gently. Night came again. The child was already asleep in the bed. Jacob stayed near the pilot's seat, checking travel routes. Ilari stood near him. Quiet. There's a refugee camp on a moon called Selvan 8, he told her. We can stop there, get your ID papers, register your name, and get medical help if you need it. She nodded. But if we go there, will they try to take us back? They won't. Earth protection laws are strict. And I'll speak for you, always. Ilari hesitated. Then she sat down beside him. I want to believe you, she whispered, but every man I trusted before used me. I'm not them, Jacob said. And I'm not asking you to trust me with everything. Just let me be the man who doesn't break that trust. She looked at him carefully, searching his face for any sign of lies. She saw none. Then she did something she hadn't done since. Her village was burned. She reached out and placed her hand over his. Jacob didn't move. He let her choose the moment. Her voice trembled. I want to be Ilari Reed, not just for safety, but because I think I want to live again. His hand tightened around hers, firm, warm, steady. Then let's live, he said, somewhere beyond. The stars, danger still waited. But inside this ship, inside this little space carved out of pain and memory, a new beginning had taken root. And it smelled like stew, sounded like laughter, and felt like a name worth holding on to. Ilari stood barefoot on the ship's small floor mat, holding a sponge and a half-empty bucket. Steam rose from the cleaning water. Her sleeves were rolled up, her hair tied back, and her face had a soft glow, not from the light above, but from something deeper inside her. She had cleaned rooms before, but always as a prisoner. This time no one ordered her. This time it was her choice. Jacob walked into the room and paused when he saw her. You didn't have to clean, he said, surprised. I wanted to, she answered, dipping the sponge again. This place feels like a real home. I want to help keep it that way. He smiled, then offered her a towel. Here, let me dry the floor while you rest. Ilari shook her head. I'm not tired. But he still took the bucket from her and sat beside her. On the floor, her daughter giggled from the bunk in the corner. She was drawing something with crayons Jacob had given her. Bright circles, stick figures, stars, and a smiling man with spiky brown hair. When Ilari saw it, she smiled too. A real smile, soft, light, and without fear, Jacob noticed. That's the first time I've seen you smile like that. Ilari touched her lips as if surprised by her own expression. It's been a long time. That smile looks good on you, he said. She blushed slightly and looked away. It's strange. I keep waiting for something to go wrong. Jacob nodded. I know that feeling, after war, after pain. Even peace feels scary. There was a silence between them, not heavy, just gentle. He changed the subject. We'll reach Selvan 8 tomorrow. I contacted the Earth consulate. They're expecting us. Will they believe I'm your wife? She asked, unsure. They don't need to believe, Jacob said calmly. I registered your name. I filed the papers. You carry my last name now. That makes you family under Earth protection laws. But it was fake, Ilari whispered, just to save me. Jacob paused. Then he said, no, I gave you my name because I wanted you safe. But now, I'd give it again just because you're you. Her eyes widened, but she said nothing. He stood and offered his hand. Come, I want to show you something. They walked to the viewing room. The stars outside were brighter here. A planet glowed blue and white in the distance. Selvan 8. Peaceful. Alive. Jacob pulled out a metal case and opened it. Inside was a necklace, simple, with a round stone at its center. "It's not much," he said, "but my mother gave it to me before I left Earth. I think you should wear it." Alari touched the stone. "Are you sure?" He nodded. "Your family now." She took the necklace and fastened it around her neck. Her hands were still shaky, but not from fear this time. From emotion. Suddenly, a small voice piped up behind them. "Mama, can I sleep in his room tonight?" They both turned. Her daughter stood there in her tiny nightshirt, rubbing her eyes. Jacob bent down. "Of course, little star. There's a big, soft blanket waiting." The girl smiled and ran off toward his room. Alari watched her go. "She trusts you." "She knows good people," Jacob said. Ilari's voice lowered. "She hasn't laughed like this in years. She will again. You both will." They walked back to the main room. Ilari helped Jacob tuck her daughter into bed. She watched as he gently covered the child and kissed her forehead, like a real father would. Afterward, they both sat near the sleeping girl, sharing quiet. "I don't know how to thank you," Ilari whispered. "For everything." Jacob looked at her. "Then don't. Just promise me something." "What?" "Promise me you'll let yourself heal. Don't carry your chains forever." She looked down at her hands. "I'll try." He smiled. "That's enough." Suddenly, the ship's warning light blinked. Jacob stood, checking the screen. "Looks like someone sent a scan signal. They were trying to find your old tag again. But it's already gone. Still, they're watching. Do we need to run?" Ilari asked, standing quickly. "No," Jacob said. "But when we land on Selvan 8, we need to finish the ID process fast. After that, no one can touch you." She nodded, fists clenched. "I'm not afraid this time." He looked at her with quiet pride. She had been dragged across galaxies, treated like trash, and stripped of everything. Name, rights, dignity. But now here she was, standing beside a human, with a name around her neck, a smile on her face, and a daughter sleeping peacefully nearby. And she was no longer afraid to be seen. Tomorrow would not be easy. But for the first time in years, she was ready to walk forward, not as property, not as prey, but as Ilari Reed. And that made all the difference. Selvan 8 was peaceful from above. The small moon glowed soft blue and silver, covered in clouds and light forests. Its main port looked nothing like the slave markets Ilari had known. No chains, no cages, no crowds shouting for flesh. Just clean buildings, flags of different worlds, and a tall white tower with the Earth consulate symbol shining at the top. Jacob landed the ship smoothly. As the ramp lowered, Ilari stood with her daughter's hand in one hand and the necklace he gave her hanging over her heart. Her steps were slow but steady. She had left the cage behind. Now she was stepping into the real world, but fear still followed her. They walked through security without trouble. Guards nodded at Jacob. Some stared at Ilari, but no one stopped them. Inside the Earth consulate, the air was cold and quiet. A female officer in a green uniform stood at a desk with a tablet in hand. She glanced at them, then motioned to a room. "Mr. Reed, your request for refugee registration is being processed. Step inside for interview," she said flatly. Jacob nodded and led Ilari into the room. It had a table, 2 chairs, and a wall screen showing Earth's flag. The officer followed and began scanning their ID tags. "Name?" she asked. "Jacob Reed," he said. The officer turned to Ilari. "And her?" "Ilari Reed," he answered. The officer paused. "She's not Terran-born. Her data isn't in any of our allied records." "What's your legal connection to her?" "She is my wife," Jacob said calmly. Ilari blinked, not in shock, but in awe. He had said it with no pause, no fear. The officer raised an eyebrow. "Do you have marriage proof?" "She took my last name under frontier emergency law," Jacob replied. And I submitted the intent to register form 2 days ago. The child is under joint guardianship. The officer typed quickly. You know, false claims can result in charges? Jacob leaned forward. I saved her from a black market slave auction. No one made a bid. She was labeled worthless. Her daughter was starving. I gave them my home, my food, and my name. You can check my record. I'm not hiding anything. The officer looked at Ilari. Do you confirm this? Are you here by your own will? Ilari took a deep breath. Her hands shook slightly. I was born on the planet Kareth, she said softly. My people were enslaved during the border wars. My daughter was born in captivity. I've had no name for years. Until he gave me one. The officer stopped typing. Ari stepped forward, her voice growing stronger. He didn't buy me. He didn't touch me. He didn't command me. He just helped. And I accepted his name because it meant safety. But now, I carry it because I choose it. The officer stared at her for a long moment, then tapped the screen. Request for protected. Refugee status is approved pending final scan and registration. Ilari let out a slow breath, almost like a quiet sob. But be warned, the officer said. There's an open bounty in 2 systems for an escaped slave matching her description. You'll both be watched. I'm used to that, Jacob said. Let them watch. We're not hiding. They left the office with a packet of ID chips, name documents, and a tiny blue card that read, Read, ELARI Human Partner Registration, protected under Earth Union Charter. Back at the ship, Ilari sat in silence. She held the card in her hand, running her thumb over the letters. Her daughter climbed into her lap and whispered, Does this mean we stay? Yes, Ilari said. We stay. No more cages. No more running. Jacob entered and set down a box. Inside was a small cake, fresh bread, and 2 cups of tea. He handed her the tea. I thought today needed something sweet. She took it with both hands, the warmth sinking into her skin. Thank you, husband. He blinked. She smiled at his reaction. You said it first. I'm saying it back. They both laughed softly, but the peace didn't last long. As night fell over Selvanate, a message beeped on the ship's console. It was scrambled, but clear enough. Target Ilari confirmed. Vessel marked. Stand by for retrieval. Jacob's face hardened. We have to move, he said. They found us. Ilari didn't panic. She stood and took her daughter's hand. Where will we go now? She asked. Jacob looked at her with calm resolve. Where they can't follow. And this time, we won't just run. We'll fight back. If we have to, Ilari nodded. Then I'm not just a refugee anymore. I'm your partner. I'll fight too. The stars outside shimmered as the ship prepared for flight once again. But this time, they weren't just running. This time, they were reeds, a family, forged not by blood, but by choice. And choice was stronger than any chain. The stars were quiet that night. Inside the ship, the air was tense. Lights were dimmed, systems were in stealth mode, and every sound felt louder than it should. Ilari sat near the escape hatch with her daughter wrapped in a blanket. Her hand stayed close to the blaster Jacob had given her. Even though she had never held one before, she wasn't afraid for herself. Any more. She was afraid for them. Jacob sat at the pilot controls, eyes scanning the radar screen. The message had been real. Someone had placed a bounty on Ilari again. Not just any bounty, but a private retrieval order, the kind that meant no laws, no mercy, no stopping. Black market hunters would be coming, and they were already near. Jacob looked back at her. Are you ready? Ilari stood. I'm not the same woman you found in that cage, Jacob. I won't let them take us again. He smiled at her. That's why I gave you my name. The ship shook, just a little. Then again harder. They're here, Jacob said. A second later, the alarms began to ring. 2 bounty hunter ships had dropped from warp. Sleek, black, fast. No markings, no warnings. One of them sent out a hook signal, a code meant to paralyze smaller ships like Jacob's, but Jacob had modified his systems long ago. Nothing shut down. He flipped the switch. Strap in. The ship turned sharply, engines roaring as they dove toward a nearby asteroid field. Lasers fired from behind. One blast scraped the side of their hull, lighting up the inside with sparks. Ilari held her daughter close and shouted, "She's okay." "Keep flying." Jacob's voice was calm. "They're faster. But we're smarter." He flew low, weaving between rocks, hiding in shadows. Ilari watched as he moved like he had done this 100 times. She realized this man wasn't just a kind soul. He was a survivor. Like her, the enemy ships followed, relentless. Then Jacob shouted, "Now!" Ilari pressed the button he had shown her earlier. It dropped emergency flares and scrambled signals. The two hunter ships lost their lock, just for a few seconds, but it was enough. Jacob brought the ship around a sharp turn and into a hidden cave inside the biggest asteroid. Metal doors shut behind them as the cave sealed. Darkness. Silence. Then a deep breath. Jacob turned off the engines and stood. Ilari stood too. "Are they gone?" "For now," he said. "They won't stop, but we have something they don't." "What?" He looked at her, each other. Hours later, after confirming the enemy ships had left the area, they set course again, this time toward Earth. It wasn't easy getting permission to land. But once Earth heard Ilari's story, backed by Jacob's veteran ID, Earth consulate records, and refugee status, they agreed to offer full settlement rights. Weeks passed, and then came the day. Ilari walked into a quiet building on Earth. Soil, a place with green trees outside, fresh air, and birds singing in the distance. Inside, a clerk waited behind a desk with a smile. "State your name," the clerk asked gently. Ilari looked at her daughter, then at Jacob standing beside her, holding her hand. She lifted her head and spoke with a strong voice. "Ilari Reed." The clerk nodded and handed her the final document. Earth citizen. Full family integration complete. Ilari stared at it. Then something warm broke inside her chest. Something deep. Something proud. A tear rolled down her cheek, not from pain, but from joy. Outside, she held Jacob's hand tightly as the wind touched her face. Her daughter ran through the grass, laughing. "No more chains. No more fear. I never thought I'd be here," Ilari whispered. Jacob leaned closer. "You earned every step." She smiled and said the words she had waited so long to say. "Thank you, husband." He looked at her with the same eyes he had the day he first saw her in the market, full of calm, full of quiet strength. "You were never broken," he said, "just waiting to be seen." Later that evening, in their small home near the edge of town, Ilari tucked her daughter into bed. The little one clutched a small toy duck, her favorite earth animal, and whispered, "Good night, Mama. Good night, Papa." Ilari walked into the kitchen, where Jacob was heating tea. She touched the necklace he had given her. "Do you think they'll ever come back?" "They might," he said. "But they'll find nothing left of the slave they once owned. Only Ilari Reed, a mother, a wife, and a fighter." She nodded. "Then let them come." They drank their tea in silence, side by side, as stars blinked above their new world. No one had made an offer for the broken, alien mother, but one human gave her something no price could ever match: a name, a family, and a future.